Logan Municipal Council agenda. It's still on my mind from a couple weeks ago, so. So, welcome, thank you all for being here. We have an exciting agenda for tonight, as usual. Our opening ceremony will be by Pastor Ron Flesner. After your comments, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you so much. I'm honored to read on behalf of Mayor Daines and all the proclamation of prayer for this year. And the theme is, Lord, we pray, pour out your love, life, and liberty. City of Logan, Utah, a proclamation for a National Day of Prayer. Whereas the 70th observance of the National Day of Prayer will be held on Thursday, May 6th, 2021, with the theme, Lord, we pray, pour out your love, life, and liberty, based on 2 Corinthians 3:17. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. And whereas a National Day of Prayer has been part of our national heritage since it was declared by the First Continental Congress in 1775, and the United States Congress in 1952 approved as a joint resolution that the President shall set aside and proclaim a suitable day each year, other than a Sunday, as a National Day of Prayer on which the people of the United States may turn to God in prayer and meditation in churches, in groups, and as individuals. And whereas the United States Congress in 1988, by Public Law 100-307 as amended, establishes an act to provide for setting aside the first Thursday in May as the date on which the National Day of Prayer is celebrated, and whereas leaders and citizens of our communities, cities, states, and nation are afforded the privilege of prayer with the joy of seeking divine guidance, strength, protection, and comfort from Almighty God. And whereas, recognizing the love of God, we, the citizens of Logan, treasure the freedom to gather in prayer, exercising reliance on God's power in the face of present challenges and threats, asking for his blessing on every individual of our city. And now, therefore, I, Holly H. Daines, Mayor of the City of Logan, do hereby proclaim May 6th, 2021 as a day of prayer throughout the City of Logan, and I commend this observance to all citizens. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand to be affixed on the 4th day of May, 2021. And just in case you wonder, her signature is there. I'm thankful for this proclamation this year. I'm thankful for the theme that we have. And I ask now that you would join me in prayer. Lord Jesus, I can't thank you enough for the goodness that you've poured out on all of us, the love that you've lavished on us. Lord, we pray together in your name that you would pour out your love, your life, your liberty on all of us, on those we love, on the city of Logan, on our beloved state of Utah, and of course, our beloved country, the United States of America. Lord, use us to keep praying constantly to you for your divine protection. And Lord, I ask that you would help all who believe in you to excel in love and in prayer. For that's exactly what we here in Logan need right now, what Utah needs not right now, and of course what our nation needs at this point in history. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. Would you join me all and stand and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Pastor Flesner. We appreciate you being here. Thank you for helping out and for opening our ceremony today. And for the wonderful prayer for our citizens. Thank you so much. I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes and approve the agenda.
So if we don't accept the agenda, does that mean we get to go home?
Then we get to go home.
I'll second.
The next meeting.
Twice as
So
long.
that's written. It should go.
Yeah.
I move acceptance of the minutes and the agenda for this evening.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the minutes have been approved and our agenda has been, minutes have been accepted and our agenda has been approved. For 2021, our regular meeting schedule are the first and third Tuesdays at 5:30. Our next meeting is on May 18th, 2021. For the time being still, the agenda item of questions and comments for the mayor and council have been suspended due to the limit on the number of attendees in the council chambers at this time. Please email comments and questions to teresa.harris@loganutah.org, who will distribute them to the mayor and council members. Teresa, would you mind reminding me, did we take care of all the emails again? We had one, didn't we?
Just the one.
Okay. Did we respond back to that one, or do we need to address that tonight still?
I think you do need to address that.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Thank you.
Is it time that we suspend that suspension?
I think we're pretty close. I saw that the state reached all of our benchmarks today for.
We're doing really well.
Suspend our suspension.
You got it.
I think that's something we could discuss for the next council meeting, or possibly even the 1st of June. We're seeing great.
We have an excess of room and people.
We do.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on what's on the agenda.
I was gonna say, ultimately it is up to you as chair as to whether or not you want that on there.
Okay.
You can solicit our opinion, but it is really up to you, chair.
I think we'll maybe talk about that in the coming weeks and see what we can do about that. Does that sound satisfactory, Tom? I appreciate the suggestion. So, Mayor, staff reports, please.
All right, we will start with item A on the agenda. I'd like to introduce Dustin Smith, who's been selected by the Boys and Girls Club of Northern Utah as the Youth of the Year, and he will give us just a brief presentation.
When I walked into the club for the first time, my world was so small and my loneliness was so big. It was consuming. My journey to the club started 3 years ago when my mom, recently divorced, lost her job. With the new job working way too many hours at a convenience store and nights at a retirement home, she needed a place for us kids to go, and so we started at the club. I am a big guy, size 16 shoes, yet when I walked into the club that day, I felt small. I suffered from depression, I felt alone, I had lost my trust in people, I was suicidal and recently diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. I am a middle child with 8 siblings, but I'm responsible for my younger 3. My dad is disabled, and though we no longer live with him, we still have scheduled visits, where I'm responsible to keep them safe. When I was younger, I felt so lonely with my dad. I felt no one would help if I told him what was happening, so I didn't. The club was a place for me and my brothers and sister. At the club, we have people and projects and friends and food. It is the place where I started to trust and I started to grow. I volunteered and helped out with programs. For the last 2 years, I have been working with the Boys and Girls Club, and these years have been the best part of my life. Life can be hard. That's why you need to find something that you are passionate about and let it help you face your problems. I am passionate about cooking. Cooking for me is a way to escape from reality and be in my own world. It's a way for me to take care of others, fulfill a need that wasn't always filled for me. At the club, I have learned what I really have to be passionate about is my future, not only what I can do with my life, but what I can be. I've decided that I am a kind, good person with a big heart. I will be an example to others who have similar experiences, to show them you can not only take care of yourself, but take care of others. You can be more than you were raised to be. I've decided to be a better man than my father, and to help my mother raise my little sister and brother to be even better than me. Now my world is so much bigger and my loneliness is so much smaller. I am a Sterling Scholar. I know university presidents and business leaders. I have toured campuses and met with professors. I have mentors and adults that have shown me options for my future. I have friends and skills that will last my lifetime. I don't have much. I started this journey with a few strikes against me, but with the club I have decided that I will not be defined by my father, my poverty, or my PTSD. Being named Youth of the Year is just another step into the big wide world.
Oh, wow.
That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And with the chair's permission, maybe I will handle the board appointments now and then go into the budget presentation.
Please.
We have 2 new members that we are recommending for ratification by the City Council to join the Planning Commission. We have some long-serving members who have stepped down. We would like to nominate David Rich Lewis to serve on the Planning Commission and Ken Hare to be the other new member. So I submit those to council for ratification.
Thank you, Mayor. Any comments from the council?
I'm familiar with both of them. I think they're different perspectives, which will be really good.
Very good. Tom?
Yeah, we met Ken during the campaign. I don't know him very well, but I think he'd be a good candidate. And I also read the resume of Mr. Lewis, and I think he'd be excellent. So if you're going to nominate, I'll second.
I'd be happy to affirm or whatever we do with the
Ratify,
his
yes.
appointment.
I thought I heard.
Ratification, and I heard a motion and a second.
Yes.
Jeannie, Ernesto, any comments? Yeah, all good?
No.
Good. All
Good
right.
candidates.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second. All those in favor of ratification for our 2 board appointments, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Our board appointments have been ratified, Mayor.
Mayor Daines, before you go to your budget presentation, I know we've had a big changeover in Planning Commission the last 3 months. Would it be possible for us to do some sort of recognition for those people who have served for a long time? I think that
That's a great idea.
all of them, all the 3 that I know that are leaving, have left, served Logan City very well and for a very long time, and I think we should recognize them somehow.
Would you, and we did at a couple of them at least at their last Planning Commission or Historic Preservation meeting, and we have delivered them a gift bag to their home with a small box of Bluebird chocolates and a little city keychain.
Oh, okay.
So that was the thank you from the city. Would council like to invite them to a meeting to honor them or do anything different? So they did get kind of an official thank you from the city.
Okay. Well, if that's, yeah, I was not aware of that, so I just, I know that being on Planning Commission is a a double-edged sword. It has wonderful parts and really, really hard parts. And I know that the 3 people who have left worked very, very hard and were important members helping to plan the future of Logan, so.
Right. And I did have some staff members sign the thank you note that went along with that, but maybe next time I should expand that to city council members. I should have thought of that, so.
Great.
As long as they know that we care, that we appreciate their service.
Okay. And we'll also provide some training for we have some new HPC members as well as Planning Commission members, so we're working on some training for those new members. Okay.
Sounds great.
All right, I will now go into the presentation of the mayor's budget message. Budgeting is certainly one of the critical things we do, and I'd like to recognize especially Rich Anderson, our finance director, for all the hard work and effort that he puts into this, and also all the department heads working together who make this come together. So you all should have a copy. So attached is the fiscal year 2022 mayor proposed budget. We are fortunate to live in this beautiful valley with good, conscientious citizens who have responded well during this difficult past year. There is light at the end of the tunnel. We count ourselves as fortunate that devastating economic consequences of the pandemic have been largely avoided locally. Certainly, many of our citizens and business owners have endured significant hardships and losses, but collectively, we are fortunate to be in the position we are in today. Our guiding budget philosophy in all funds of the city has been to budget for revenues conservatively. Conservative revenue projections cause us to examine expenditures and expenses carefully. Furthermore, when actual results exceed our conservative projections, those funds are in turn dedicated to the next most critical capital project, which further reduces pressure on future operating budgets. Conservative projections pay dividends in the future, while overly aggressive projections can actually borrow from an uncertain future. I am happy to report that the proposed budget continues to project revenues conservatively and to scrutinize spending very carefully. In the prior year, due to economic uncertainty that existed at the time, we were unable to propose wage increases. We are pleased to be able to propose a 3% pay-for-performance increase to wages. In addition, we propose to restore the 401k match for those employees who elect to defer up to 2.5% of their earnings for retirement. We have also dedicated some funding for administrative adjustments, including market adjustments. These adjustments will be under the direction of the Human Resources Department as they work with departments to identify specific areas of concern where other employers in those areas have higher wages. We are able to fund these wage increases in part due to a more reasonable increase in healthcare insurance than we've experienced over the past several years. For the current year, we have budgeted for a 5% increase in healthcare premiums. This is down from 9% the prior year and a trend over the last few years of 10 to 13%. Uncertainty in the prior year's budget caused us to decrease our capital spending in the general fund by approximately $700,000. We are pleased to propose restoring that funding and to increase it by a relatively modest $200,000 for a total of $900,000 of additional capital spending in the general fund. We must continue to be vigilant in our funding of capital infrastructure as we move forward, and this is particularly important as we replace and improve our aging transportation infrastructure. We are requesting one new employee in the general fund to deal directly with managing capital projects. This employee will help our Public Works Department to manage the significant number of capital projects we currently have in process and those capital projects proposed in this budget and in the future. One significant change from prior year's budgets is the creation of our Emergency Medical Services, or EMS, fund. When SIMS ceased ambulance operations on January 1, 2021, the city created this new fund to account for ambulance services. Those employees and operations previously accounted for in the ambulance division of the fire department were relocated to this new fund, along with the corresponding revenue. The change you will see in the budget is a reduction of charges for service revenues in the general fund, a reduction of fire department ambulance expenditures in the general fund, and the creation of a new Emergency Medical Services Enterprise Fund to account for these revenues and expenses separately. We're happy to report that the construction of the sewer treatment plant continues on target and on budget. This project is the largest and most significant capital project we have undertaken as a city. The proposed budget includes all currently anticipated annual expenses necessary to operate the treatment plant, including a request for 4 new full-time positions. In addition, the proposed budget includes a request for one-time equipment and supplies necessary to make the plant operational. Several years ago, we increased the water and sewer collection rates in anticipation of several future capital projects. It is now time to address one of those capital projects. The proposed budget includes a request to appropriate $20 million of reserves toward the Island Lower Zone Water Storage Tank, a project we need to build to be in line with state standards. We anticipate being able to complete this project without bonding due to the foresight and cooperation of the administration, Water Advisory Board, Council, and our citizens. The trimming of tree limbs below and around power lines is a necessary maintenance practice to keep the power on. Logan City Electric Department has an impressive track record of providing reliable power to our citizens and businesses. We want to keep it that way. We believe the best way to do this is to better utilize the resources we already have. We propose adding 2 new employees in the Forestry Division of the Environmental Health Fund. Those employees will be assigned to perform line clearance under the direction of the Forestry Division of the Environmental Health Fund. The Electric Fund will compensate the Environmental Health Fund for this service. Our hope is that this will provide a win-win for our citizens. More capacity in our Forestry Division, much better care of our city trees, and better service for the Electric Fund. We have been outsourcing this function to a private contractor, but believe we'll be able to provide more responsive and higher quality service by placing it under the direction of the Forestry Division. In summary, we are committed to providing excellent services and quality of life for our citizens. As mayor, along with my outstanding team, we pledge to do our very best to adapt and move forward in a positive way to meet the challenges of the future. Thank you, council members, for the important role you play.
Thank you, Mayor, for the update. Does anyone have any questions for the mayor?
So how does Mr. Anderson feel about another enterprise fund?
Tariffs. No, it'll be just fine. It'll take a few years for us to figure out exactly how to operate and account for and project forward, but we have looked at it pretty carefully. We'll watch it as we move forward carefully, and it'll be just fine.
Okay.
It was a lot of work to get it set up. Again, change can sometimes be challenging, but again, we think it will provide better service going forward for our citizens.
Has Aspen ended their services? Because I saw them still working.
No, the contract goes, I believe, through July 1st, so we will be giving them notice shortly. It's a 30-day notice, so Mark Montgomery's working on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
And again, we will have, as you know, budget workshops for the alternate 2 meetings in May. So every Tuesday night in May will be devoted to the city. Thank you very much.
Our pleasure.
I don't know if clapping is appropriate. Amy, keep that clapping to yourself.
The other question, that 5% increase is amazing. I've never seen one that low. So do you attribute that to some program of healthcare in the city or something?
Well, we've been fortunate again, and we've had a good partner in Cigna. Again, you know, we do bid insurance out every year just to make sure we are getting the best deal. At some point, it may make sense for us to be self-insured, but so far we've gotten the rates to continue with them.
That's a
Any other
great
comments?
increase. Yeah.
It's also possible that COVID may have helped us out in this area. There was, less people doing elective things, and so that decreased our costs. I don't want to say it helped us out, but it's a positive because of a gigantic negative.
It's a positive contributing factor.
Yes, there we go.
Excellent. Mayor, I did also have a question. With the changes with vaccinations, how are things coming with the fire department, and what are the adjustments going to be? So,
And I will ask, since Craig Humphreys is here for another item, I ask him to give us a report since he is there at the station every day. Assistant Chief Humphreys, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Council, nice to see you tonight. And thank you for your time that you spend in those chairs. I know what it takes because I sit in one also for Niagara City.
In the North Logan, he's on the
Yes.
North Logan City Council.
So we had, our clinic was running today. The demand has decreased quite a bit in the recent past. The plan right now is the clinic will run again next Tuesday. And then at that point, we don't have any more planned on the schedule after that, but we will evaluate that with the health department and on an as-needed basis we can do more after that. But as of today, now it closes at 6 o'clock, so these were the numbers at about 5 o'clock. I contacted our EMS assistant chief. At about 5 o'clock, we had given 8,503 vaccinations in the fire station, and then as well as some of our employees that participated in the clinics at the health department. The fire department employees have been able to give 9,489 vaccinations in our community. So it's been a great success. And a lot of people have come through the building and got those vaccinations. Appreciate your support in that. Any other questions?
Will they be doing the mobile clinics?
I don't know yet. The Very Health Department's looking at that.
Well, I knew they agreed that, or they permitted those, so
I think we need to. There's some people that struggle to get out where we can go and do those in their homes. So they're still talking about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
While we're on this topic, maybe, I don't know if you can answer it or the mayor, but I know Utah, compared to other states, has one of the lowest vaccination percentages in the nation. Do you understand?
Part of that is all the children we have in Utah.
Okay.
Because typically, at least as I understand it, how it's been reported is, it's the total percentage of population, but our children, under 18 compared to adults is such a high ratio. So I think we're actually doing pretty well. I think they redid those numbers.
I think the percentage of people eligible for a vaccine is actually one of the highest, I think,
Good,
though.
good. I
If I'm
didn't.
not mistaken.
Thanks for
Is
that
that correct?
clarification.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief Humphreys. 10,000 almost vaccinations, that's awesome. I think that's wonderful. The only way we can get back to normal is if we get more people vaccinated. So if you haven't had a chance, get out there and get vaccinated. That's the best way to get back to normal. Yes, as close as we can get, yes, as close as we can get. So moving on to our council business, Vice Chair Simmons, update from the Planning Commission, please.
Yes, Planning Commission met last week, and there are 2 rezones that we will be workshopping that you'll find out more about later. There was also an addition of 3 lots, only 2 are buildable, to a subdivision that Nick Porter was doing over by Quail Meadows. And then the Planning Commission approved the plaza. So that was our day.
Very nice.
Can I clap for that?
I think. Very exciting. Very exciting. All right. Thank you for your report and update. The council budget workshops will be Tuesday, May 11th and Tuesday, May 12th at 5:30 as the mayor had. 25th, sorry, 25th, not 12th, 25th. I know, 2 Tuesdays. As the mayor has suggested, we will be meeting a lot in May, so that's great.
And they'll be here and open to the public, right? So if you really are geeky about budget.
And these are very exciting.
So exciting, these meetings, yes.
Usually we've divided and know what we're talking about at each one of those, or are you gonna send us something in
I
advance?
think there's an
There's,
agenda already
yeah,
attached in our packet.
it's in the packet, yeah. So there's budget agendas for both of those, yeah. Is that going to be broadcast also?
Yes, they are public meetings, so they will be streamed live on Facebook.
That sounds great. All right. Let's move on to our action items. So continued from April 6th, we have a public hearing. Mike Desmoni. Are we continuing that one again, or what's the plan with our annexation petition?
All right, Kimber was gonna do it, but he's not here.
We can pass that on to Craig if you'd like, but.
Well, we just are requesting you to continue it to the following meeting, which is May, 18th. The Boundary Review Commission meets this Thursday, 3 o'clock, and we're hoping to have it resolved by then. So,
I move we continue ordinance 21-04 to the May 18th meeting.
I'll second the motion.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. I don't think there's any discussion, as I see. All those in favor of continuing ordinance 21-04, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll continue one more time. hopefully we'll get something back, Mike, so.
And as I recall, that still will be a public hearing, I think is how we approved it the first time through.
Yes.
There still will be the opportunity for the public to speak at
I think we've just continued it all the way through, so. All right, very good. Thanks for being with us, Mike. All right, our next public hearing is for Resolution 21-22, Budget Adjustment. Rich Anderson.
We discussed this last time. It's a request to appropriate $42,264 of specific COVID-related grant expenses that have been incurred in our communication center, our 911 fund. And what this does by appropriating these funds, it just acknowledges that those funds were spent appropriately.
Very good. Unless there's comments from the council, we will open this up for public comment. If you'd like to make a comment about Resolution 21-22, now's your opportunity. So exciting. No one wants to talk about this? No, all right.
We trust him.
Rich is pretty amazing, so. All right, let's bring that back to the council for action.
I move we approve Resolution 21-22.
I'll second.
Our Resolution 21-22 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion approved, resolution approved. All right, our next public hearing is a consideration of a proposed ordinance amending Title 13. Cameron, you're up.
Backflow is so much more
I know, it's
exciting
so
than
much
anything
more.
else, man.
Backflows are,
I was just gonna say, this is a highlight of your year so far, I'm sure. I admit it's a pretty dry thing, pun intended, I guess, there.
No pun
It's
intended, yeah.
pretty dry reading, but it is very important for us depending how you look on it, it's both our first and last line of defense to keep our drinking water safe. There's no sinister changes or anything in it. Mostly it's just housekeeping. It's been over 10 years since the ordinance was updated. And so we've updated it, again, mostly, and adding definitions and clarifying different things to bring us more closely in line with both state and federal level guidelines with this ordinance. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on that.
Are there any questions for Cameron? I think you were very thorough in our workshop, so thank you. All right, we will open this up for public comment. If anyone would like to comment on Ordinance 21-08, now's your opportunity.
You got off easy.
I was going to say, not seeing anyone jump up in excitement, we will bring this back to council for action.
I'll move that we accept, I guess it's 2108, yes.
2108.
Cameron, okay. So I move that be approved.
I'll second that.
All right. Had a motion and a second. All those in favor of Ordinance 21-08, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Ordinance has been approved. Moving along. Resolution 21-23, proposed resolution to acknowledge and support a grant application to the Land and Water Conservation Fund. Russ Aquina, do you have anything to add to your presentation from last time?
No, I do not.
Excellent. As long as Mark can slide, that's all.
Yes, as long as I can slide on that southeast, ball field, we'll be much happier, so.
Do you want to tell them the good news you received today about the other grant, or do you want to wait until a later time?
No, I think it's great news. So our department had applied for Utah Outdoor Recreation Grant money. The legislature this year put some more money into that grant. It's an annual grant. The last time we received funding for it was for the bike park at Bridger Park. So this time we were applying for money to do improvements for the Blue Trail project that will have a kayak ramp at the 600 South Park site. So that package that we submitted was for a parking lot, restroom, and a walkway to the kayak ramp. And we received notice today that it was funded at the requested amount.
And that was right around $200,000,
That
right?
is appropriate for clapping, Amy, yes.
We're
So excited.
Yeah.
So Russ, now I need you to find some money to rebuild the skate park.
It's still on your list, huh?
It is on my list.
Staff do a really great job at working hard to make these grant applications to generate additional funds, which really helps with some of our capital, so.
But
Russ, where is that kayak ramp? You said 6 South?
Yes.
That, we own the property and again, have been wanting to develop the park but have had no money. So for instance, there's a place you can put in at Rendezvous Park. Eventually, as part of the whole Blue Trail plan, we'd like to put one at Stewart Nature Park. So again, as we get funding for these, we'll expand that. But if you put in, you have to have a takeout, so.
Downstream.
Right. So again, this is a great project to kind of expand the reach, and so we not only have regular trails, we now have a blue trail, and we'll do some work on that.
that is so exciting. But the current resolution in front of us is just to get our support for an application for another grant, is that correct?
That's correct. So this is Land and Water Conservation Fund. This is federal money that's allocated by Congress, and it goes to the states. And in this case, it goes to the division, or the Department of Natural Resources and State Parks is the administrator of these grants. And so one of the things that we were informed about was that, expect this to take a little bit of time for this to move through the pipeline. And so the resolution here reflects that there will be some time involved. We're projecting, and we think we're pretty close with this, it will not be within the next fiscal year, which you will start to see today and next week. So the reflection here is that we know that this will take some time, but because it's being brought before you, should you approve it, it would be another evidence of support for that grant when the funds become available. And as it's mentioned in the resolution, this is for improvements at the sports complex. So in fact, you can test out the southeast field anytime you like. The grant for this is the northeast and northwest fields.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for the update, Russ. All right, let's open this up for public comment. Resolution 21-23, it now is your opportunity to make a comment about our proposed resolution to apply for a grant. Again, very exciting. Very exciting. All right, not seeing any comments. Now let's bring it back for council action.
I move acceptance of resolution 21-23.
Second. I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Resolution 21-23, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution has been approved.
So much hot debate.
I know, so exciting. It's hard to say no.
Could I ask a question, Russ? When you put in for a kayak, I'd like to know that the river is safe, from entanglements and so forth. Has that been checked and cleared and so forth?
Sure, I guess I mistakenly said with the UORD money that we received for the bike park, we received funding from them since then for the Blue Trail project. And part of what we're using that money for is for debris removal. So there's been a group of volunteers that have already floated the river from First Dam down to 6 South. And they've identified, there's 183 identifications of one type of debris area or another, whether that's rebar or concrete or car bodies. And the neat thing about that group is once they found it, they GPSed every location. So we know where it is unless it floated away. And so when we do the debris removal part, that of course will make it safer for people to navigate the river.
That's really good. One of the things that's a risk, because I've done some kayaking, and getting under the overhanging branches where you can get tangled up, and if you're not prepared for it, it's dangerous. So are they going to take those out or
Now,
mitigate them?
the tricky part to like tree limb or tree branch removal is to ensure that we're taking enough to keep it safe for people using a watercraft, hand carry watercraft, and not removing all of the shade for the fish. Mm-hmm. So there's a balance that we have to hit, because removing all of it raises the temperature of the water, which is not a good thing for the fish. So we remove enough of it to make it safe, so people don't get snagged on a branch or a limb, but not remove it all so that we have direct sunlight on the river.
Okay.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Great. Thank you, Russ. All right. Our last public hearing for tonight, Ordinance 21-09, proposed ordinance vacating certain public utility easements. Cameron, I think you're taking the place of Paul for tonight.
I am.
Thank you.
This is for the property that's located on the northwest corner of 2200 North and 600 West. Right now it's just an empty field, but currently there are 3 lots that are owned by a developer. They want to combine it to one lot. As such, and doing that, it makes 2 of the public utility easements not needed. So there's the movement there to vacate those 2 easements.
And who's asking whose question about, is there any intrinsic value?
We asked
We asked that at the workshop. Yes, we asked that at the workshop. Yes.
He trained you well.
Yes, I think.
Is there a financial value to it?
That's, would always ask that.
Yeah. As I recall, Paul was very clear in the workshop, so unless we need any extra clarification from the workshop, that information is in our packet as well too, so. All right.
God, you got off easy
I
twice.
know.
I'm not pressing my luck here.
It's a great meeting to come to,
He's gonna go
Cameron.
sit down right now.
There could be like a stampede of
Stampede of
public
people
hearing.
concerned about this. Okay, we will open this up for the public now. If you'd like to make a comment on vacating certain public utility easements, Ordinance 21-09. Lots of ordinances and resolutions tonight, but none of them were very controversial, so we like that. So, all right, let's, since there's no public comment, let's bring it back to the council for action.
I move we approve ordinance 21-09.
I'll second.
All right, so moved and seconded. All those in favor of ordinance 21-09, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Ordinance has also been approved.
Now we get to the fun stuff.
I know, now the fun stuff. Our schedule is slightly off, Teresa. We'll have to kind of keep an eye on that for next time.
We'll have to chat more.
No, it's like perfect. I love it that we're way ahead of schedule.
But look at all these other considerations I have, so don't get too
All
excited.
right, Amy's getting ahead of herself. All right, let's move on to the workshop items. Russ, please share with us ordinance 21-10, which is a rezone.
Thank you, Council Chair. This is a request to rezone approximately 2 acres from MR20 to MR30.
Rich, can you move the screen
This
for us,
is
please?
down on South Main. It's part of the Logan Gateway project, or the Adams office. I'm sure you've all seen it. New 4-story glass office building on the west side of Main, approximately 700 South. With that project, the Planning Commission just approved 3 pad sites that will likely contain new restaurants along the Main Street frontage, with the option for a 4th right along the river in a future date. This parcel is west of the new 100 West Street corridor, so the plan is to extend and connect 100 West Street between 600 South and Golf Course Road. This property is right along the river, and it's triangular in shape. So the future land use plan, or the FLUP, as we call it, calls this whole area as mixed use center. In 2019, when the Logan Gateway project came through the city and was approved, they proposed a mix of commercial on the eastern portion of the property and MR20 on the western portion of the property. At that time, we felt like it accomplished the goals of the mixed use zone because it was going to provide commercial services and businesses along Main Street, and then housing and residential along the river. They chose MR20. Mixed use is actually 30 units per acre, and so we went with MR20. Now they're requesting MR30, which is actually closer back to the mixed use. And this is the proposal here. So the surrounding area is commercial on the east, a little bit of mixed use to the northeast, and then MR12 across the river with some NR6. The NR6 or the yellow is single family, the brown MR12 is multifamily, and the red and maroon are commercial and mixed use. The road has not been designed, but it essentially will follow this yellow line as a center line, and then a bridge will cross the river. We're working on some trail extensions to continue the trail south of this site down to Golf Course Road and ultimately to the Logan River Walk Trail, and then as well as to the north, hopefully under Main Street and connect to the Riverwoods trails and then First East and Merlin Olsen and beyond. This shows the 100-year floodplain. So the river at this point is very channelized, very rapid, and it doesn't really flood outside of its current banks. They're pretty steep banks in this area. The zoning history is annexed in 73. It was C3 and C2 and CG, which are all pretty similar commercial zones, just different names. All the way up till 2012, which was zoned mixed use. And then in 2019, it was, as I mentioned earlier, proposed by the applicant to go to commercial and MR20. Planning Commission met on my birthday, April 22nd, and voted to recommend approval. The votes were 6-1, and there were no public comments at that point. I am happy to answer questions.
Good, I didn't ask a question at Planning Commission, but I figured I'd have a chance to ask it here. Where else in town do we have MR30?
Up in the Bridger neighborhood, there's a section of MR30, I believe. And
When I looked at the map, I couldn't see any other place.
yeah, we don't have very much. I think we rezoned a parcel that went bankrupt and then expired. I believe that one went back to MR30 up on 400 West, but that might be the only one in town. I could do some research and get back to you.
I would appreciate that, because I don't know, it just seems like they requested MR20. And it's like, MR30 seems to be an outlier for us. And I don't know whether, I just feel like it's an outlier, because I really didn't see it anywhere else in the map. And so I was like, okay, why here?
Yeah, we don't have a lot of MR30 land. It's very similar to mixed use, and so I think oftentimes mixed use gets developed, but as far as density and heights and ordinances are concerned.
But they don't want to use mixed use because they feel like they already have plenty.
Right, I'm just saying that's maybe why there's not too much MR30 throughout the city.
So what's the difference between, I mean, other than the commercial component, what's the difference between mixed use and MR30?
Setbacks are a little bit closer on mixed use, but otherwise they're pretty similar. In height, I think the heights are about the same, density's obviously the same.
So we do have construction that's that dense, we just don't have it zoned MR30, it's zoned mixed use.
I don't think we have any that's that
Maybe
dense
that's
even.
dense.
So I
We
know
The town center's,
We have the capacity.
Yeah,
town center's much more dense than that. The Mill Creek project's over 70 units per acre. We've done a couple mixed use, the Homestead project on 6th West is about 30
what
units per
about
acre.
Riverwoods on the other side of Main Street, on 100 East?
I want to say that's between 20 and 30 units per acre. It's under the mixed use as well.
Okay.
I don't know if they
But it's
maxed.
under an old mixed use.
I remember when we discussed this back in the day, 2019, about just moving it from the mixed use to commercial and the MR20, and the idea was you wouldn't want housing right up along Main Street, so that's why we agreed to the split of commercial and residential as opposed to making it mixed use, which I still think
Even
makes
though
sense.
it's still mixed use, yeah.
And so I do recall that as being a good portion of that discussion about, well, why not just leave it mixed use? They could have done the density of 20, because it was all one plot at that point, wasn't it? Because the road wasn't through. I'm just trying to, I didn't have time to go back and look at what we discussed in
I do
2019.
believe that there was a discussion, or not a discussion so much as a realization that if it's zoned separately, they can sell off that piece to another person, but if it's all mixed use, they would have to develop it
At the same time.
wholly.
If it were mixed use, they'd have to put some commercial on the bottom, like on the main floor also, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so that's maybe why we do the commercial on the one side and the mixed
I think
residential on
Well,
the other
the
side.
whole
the whole thing's
parcel,
mixed
the whole
use, yeah.
parcel of the commercial that's been developed, and this was all rezoned at the same
That
time.
makes,
The applicant in 2019 is a different applicant than this applicant. And yes, in 2019, they weren't interested in residential development. They were just interested in their commercial project.
So the property has been sold?
I'm not sure if it's changed hands, but there's been different partners that have come on.
the
The
RDA,
RDA at the time did provide an incentive for multifamily housing if they did it within a certain amount of time. Again, they have to do that to, collect that portion of the increment, but there was intent at that time to do multifamily.
Is it also affordable? Was that part of the?
No, they weren't looking at it for.
We didn't designate affordable versus market rate.
So it's interesting, so there were no public comments. How many people live within that 300 feet radius that were notified? I'm just surprised there was no public comment on this, because it's a 10-foot bump up in height.
I didn't receive any written comment, nor were there any given at the meeting. I don't know the total number of letters sent, but yeah, there's a fair amount of multifamily to the west there, so maybe 50, I can get that number as well.
with the river separating, it's
Yeah,
kind
it's
of, isolated on its own.
Church to the
Now from
north.
300 feet, to the outer perimeter of the property to within 300 feet, which is about a half block.
Which is like 2 houses. It is, it's like 2, look at
houses,
them.
yeah,
It's maybe
four
2, maybe 3 houses.
Well, the church, their own properties on the other side, so
I think they feel isolated,
it's Spillman Building.
insulated.
But if we do 100, there'll be a
I
lot
don't know,
more,
I
there'll be a
just-
lot more traffic there too, so.
I guess I wish we were a little more broad in our notification.
That might be one of my other consideration items that I'd like to discuss tonight.
Okay.
Anyway,
Any other questions for Russ? Thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
I think he gets to do another one.
He's gonna do.
Yes. Let's move on to ordinance 21-11.
Doesn't get to get up yet.
Yes, Holly, glad you could make it tonight.
Thank you.
Yes.
This is the Riverside RV Park rezone request. This is down on 1700 South, near the Zollinger Cold Storage, the intersection of Highway 89 and Park Avenue, just south of the soccer complex and the Country Manor subdivision. This is just under 5 acres, about 4.78. Some of that acreage actually is the Blacksmith Fork River and some land across the river.
Really?
Yep. This area of the FLUP is designated as rec. It's the dark green. The zoning is rec, the lighter green. Zoning in the area is varied. To the south, you have industrial park zoning. To the west, there's some commercial around that traffic light. NR6, the single family, and some MR12 farther to the east. That's the Black Hawk condo.
And
project.
NR6 is,
Single family residential.
is it Country Manor?
Yeah, Country Manor.
Thank you.
Yellow is always single family residential.
Right, but I just wanted to have my head around.
Yep, country. So this is the proposal here. This is the floodplain map. So the red is the 100-year floodplain, the orange is the 500-year floodplain. There's a lot of floodplains on this property. This is the current aerial. You can see the dark, or the blue line is the property line, and over in this area here, it crosses over the river. This is the Blacksmith Fork River, right before it converges with the Logan River right up here at Rendezvous Park. 1700 South is here. So this property's history is annexed in 1985, permitted as an RV park originally in 1988, and then was given an expansion permit in 95. A total of 20 sites were permitted and legally established here. In 85, it was zoned R3, which is a multifamily zone. In 89, it was C2, which is a commercial zone. And then in 2000, it was zoned rec, and has been that way ever since. So it was permitted under the R3 and the C2, and when it was zoned rec, it is still considered conforming, because rec zones allow RV parks.
So
So
was
it
the
is-
C2, that's because it was an RV park? Does an RV park meet the commercial requirement?
It was allowed in the C2 back in the day, but the primary purpose of the C2 was a commercial zoning district. Now, the RV park is not allowed in the commercial zoning district.
Can I ask you a question, Russ? I'm sorry to interrupt. In 2000, when that change was made to rec, do we have any record of anyone protesting that change?
Good question. I do not believe so, but I can look. I opened up the file and haven't seen anything, but let me double check that.
Okay, I would appreciate that, because, you know, I don't want somebody to say, well, I didn't ever want it that way. And I said that, and then it happened anyway.
That's good.
Planning Commission met on this one, and they voted to recommend denial, 6-1. There was one public comment from Rex Peterson about the river flooding and clearing the railroad bridge debris. Rex Peterson is also property owner and RV park owner. He originally operated this in 1988 and has operated RVs there ever since. It's my understanding that he's trying to sell the property and retire. That is why there's a rezone request. There was also an RV park conditional use permit to expand it from 20 slots to 63 slots, but that was pulled before a decision was rendered.
Can you expand on his comment? Is that a positive or a negative comment for
So,
the?
no, sorry, it was positive, I guess. So the crux of the conversation at the planning commission meeting was the floodplain and the
Yeah.
river flooding. And Rex made the comment that as long as you keep the railroad trestle debris cleared, it doesn't flood as much.
As
So that
much.
was the, well, it doesn't.
That's a relative statement.
Yeah, it's very relative.
It's probably not gonna flood this year.
Probably won't flood this year.
We, pretty confident in
Unless
that.
there's too much debris piled up.
So the request was for it to go to MR 20.
Correct. The applicant would like to build townhomes on this project, or on this property, sorry.
At MR 20?
At MR 20.
Isn't townhomes usually more like MR 7 or something like that?
It depends on how tight you put them together.
MR 9, like, okay.
So Russ,
Just a
it's,
question about that.
it's,
Townhomes are typically around 12 to 16, but it varies.
so let's talk about the floodplain. It's a 100-year floodplain, almost the entire property. And
Except the part that's 500 year.
well, almost, I said. So the issue is if you had to build a townhome, you'd have to build it, as you said, a foot above the highest level,
Correct.
which means you either build up the site or build up the buildings on piers, right? The first occupiable floor has to be at least 1 foot above the floodplain level.
Yeah, the way I understand it, piers or stilts would be fine, like a beach house in South Carolina, because you're not really impacting downstream properties.
Right.
That flood water goes right through the bottom of your piers and continues downstream. When you start bringing in fill, then that water is going to go somewhere else, right? And so then it goes downstream and floods out a downstream property where maybe it historically hasn't. And so that's the issue with the floodplain, is you can develop in it, but you have to be careful that you don't, it worsen the flooding downstream. And so typically you have to balance kind of, if you bring in fill, then you got to create some volume or void, to counterbalance that fill. But stilts are cool and.
Well, you see a lot of that. I was down in South Carolina and other areas down there, and there are a lot of areas that are floodplain. And so the buildings, the beach homes and everything are up on stilts. That's just a style, a lifestyle. But I don't know, people then start putting habitable things down below it and it violates the code. So it's a risky thing.
So if this was approved with a 4-acre property, how many townhomes are we talking about potentially could be built on this?
Oh, let's see, what was that?
4 times 20.
Well, no, because you've got the setbacks and the floodplain and just curious what.
Yeah, but we take our density off of gross acreage, and then they have to figure out how to fit that within the setbacks or within the limitations.
So it's 80.
4.7 acres.
94. Okay.
I was conservative. So.
You always are.
Yeah,
You're wearing a jacket,
Yeah.
aren't you?
That's because I didn't iron my shirt.
I say houses on stilts are not really common in our area, but that could be kind of unique.
It's an option. But what I'm saying, I guess I'm asking, because if you built fill and like a flood wall, you would divert the water and potentially create greater flooding downstream, right?
Correct.
Pardon?
Correct.
So will the building department, planning department guarantee or manage that it won't do that type of thing?
So there's a series of reviewers. First is the Public Works Engineering Department, then it goes to the State Engineering Department, then it goes to FEMA for final review and approval for any kind of development within a floodplain. And if you can get sign off from those folks, then you can move forward with your project.
If you get it rezoned.
And there's a traffic light at Park and 89, correct? That's a traffic light.
Yes, right here.
So for traffic issues.
But the safeguard on the flooding is with the FEMA and the building and so forth. I mean, I know where you're kind of going, Jeannie. I think, do we plan it and say we can't do it because there's a potential risk for it? Where the risk can be mitigated with planning efforts and engineering efforts. I'm just asking.
I don't think we should be building at that density in places like
Well,
this.
I just asking the question.
And I would think that our experience with Country Manor should speak very loudly on that. It's right across the river.
Yeah, and I think that's beyond, that's kind of a different apple.
And this remained, in the flood, this remained wreck, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
I think I already said that, but.
Country Manor built buildings below floodplain, and that was the problem. Way back,
How often do they flood?
almost annually.
They haven't,
Until we did.
Not for a while, well, since the dike was put in,
I was just curious, I didn't know.
but that was an expensive mitigation.
Very expensive. Anyway,
Okay,
so planning commission was, like I said, 6-1 against it, against the rezone.
do
So
we know why Mr. Dickinson voted for it?
it was Ms.
Ms.
Dickinson.
Dickinson, sorry.
I think that, I believe she said she thinks people ought to be able to do what they want with their property.
She mentioned the fact that it was commercial at one point in time.
Okay.
I don't know exactly why she voted this way though, but she
Yeah, I
did
don't
mention
either.
that.
Why was it zoned commercial and these other zoning if they knew that it was a floodplain?
That was, look at how long ago that was, Tom.
It was still a floodplain.
I know
was, but they
that,
probably didn't
but
realize
the regulations and everything were significantly different.
These are some
That's
newer
why Country
mapping.
Manor was
I
built
can
where
find
it
out when
was.
this latest mapping was adopted.
manage the river.
I'm pretty sure it's after the commercial zone.
Okay. Any other questions for Russ? Our workshop.
Is this
I'm
the
just trying to
property
make
that,
it more exciting.
Go ahead, Ernesto.
this is a property that had that rezoning request a little while ago, right?
Correct.
Yes. Conditional use to extend the trailer park and make it more permanent.
From what we know, would we ever consider rezoning it to something else besides recreational? Based on what we know right now.
I wouldn't, but I can only speak for me.
Floodplain is a considerable issue to deal
Yes.
with.
I think it's a very considerable issue.
Thank you.
And it
You're
was
bobbing
a,
your head. I was like,
Anyone?
I almost said a word that probably isn't appropriate. It was an inconsiderable amount of money to mitigate the Country Manor flooding, correct? And we had to put that dike in and all of that stuff. Wasn't that a considerably expensive
We
property?
had to buy
Yes.
6 houses, 2, so, yeah.
But I think, the issue is different because they built below the floodplain. And that is something that our building department can prevent.
I'm just saying what I think.
Me too.
There you go. Did that answer your question, Ernesto?
Yeah, it's interesting that as you know, I'm still new at a lot of these things, and as a property owner, if I have no, I guess, in a way, to change what can be built, and it's frustrating, I'm sure, for a property owner.
Sure.
I think that leads to why Jeannie asked when this was rezoned 21 years ago, what was the conversation? Because I do think that it does have relevance, Ernesto.
So let's find out.
Because, yeah,
Let's find out. Thank you, Russ.
Thank you.
All right, Thanks for your time.
Happy belated birthday.
Yes.
Yeah.
If
I
we
think it's your
we would have
birthday
come
then.
with a cupcake or something for you.
Yeah, I would have come with cupcakes at planning commission, come on.
The 22nd. That's right.
I'll put it in my calendar.
All right. Assistant Chief Humphreys to talk about fireworks.
Our annual
Thank you.
fireworks
It's
conversation.
been almost a year and I'm back. So,
Only it's a lot more dry this year than it was last year.
Several years ago, the state passed a state statute that put the responsibility of establishing the fireworks restricted areas at the city council level instead of at the fire marshal level. So I come every year to review those restricted areas with you, give you the option to change those if you would like, or if you would like us to continue with those same restricted areas. The restricted areas traditionally have been, and they are mostly set on traditional fires, dry areas, and things where we can have those type of problems with the fireworks. And then also we try to line up with other communities and put them on streets or areas that are easily defined, because sometimes they can be difficult to define. So in review, we have an east side restriction that comes along the east side of 1600 East from the north city boundary to the Highway 89. And then we capture both of the slopes of the island area, the north and south slopes, and then east of Gibbons Parkway to the south border of the city. We captured the gravel pit that's located between, I got to get my directions, 12th and 14th East and 14th North and 12th North. Right. So we capture the gravel pit area. And then on the west side, we capture the west side of 6th West from the north city boundary to 2nd South, and then from 2nd South down to 10th West, and from 10th West to the south border of the city. So those are our restricted areas for fireworks that we propose to maintain the same as this year. It is a very dry year this year. The governor has already signed a drought declaration this year, and all of our fire professionals are expecting a rough year for us for wildland fires.
So why is there that little keyhole out of the west side?
Because that's in Cache County.
Oh, okay.
And the west side is because there's open
Yes,
land,
a lot
right?
of
It's
open
not-
land
yeah,
and
where you
dry
could
farm
have
ground,
dry.
agricultural ground mostly.
I mean, we can't say there and they can't do it either.
I hope the county will have that, the state will have that covered because the state's gonna sign one for all unincorporated areas.
Oh, okay.
Normally they do that.
The south side of the gravel pit area, at least some of it or most of it has now been developed.
It has, yeah, and that's good to see. Some of that area
That's where I live
developed.
now.
You want fireworks in your
No, I
driveway.
don't want fireworks in my driveway.
Any other questions for me? Just a good review and we'll do it next year too.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
It's a good map. I saw the keyhole too, Jeannie.
Yeah.
I was curious. Yeah, I was curious. Thanks for asking. All right, Rich, Resolution 21-25 for some appropriations.
3 run-of-the-mill appropriations, and one that's a little bit unique, we'll have a little longer discussion on. The first is request to appropriate $300,000 of state grant funds for the 7th North Realignment Project. Request to appropriate $4,600 of previously donated funds that we've received, now appropriating those toward the police department banquet. They were donated for that purpose. Request to appropriate $11,751 for hazmat training reimbursements from the state of Utah for the fire department. And lastly, and this is the one that's a little more unique, is a request to appropriate $325,000 of capital project reserve funds toward the design of a new fire station 70. And Craig will speak a little bit more to that as it requires a little more explanation.
And let me just give a little bit of background on that first. You know, we realized after we did this agenda that it really is kind of a different item. So at the next meeting, we intend to pull that particular item out and have it separate on the agenda. So again, public comment can be separate. And it may be something that we need to take a few more weeks, you know, to get people comfortable with before we make a decision. So we're flexible on that. I know Chief is very anxious to move ahead with the design, but we wanted, clearly we don't want to spend design funds if we're not going ahead. And so we've moved ahead to do noticing that we would typically do at Planning Commission, just to give everyone a chance to respond. So I did email everyone on my Adams Neighborhood Council list, just to let them know because it's in their neighborhood. The Planning Department is reaching out to the couple of blocks around that location. Again, it wasn't out by tonight, but again, this wasn't the public hearing. It will be out by, so they'll have it to be aware of the public hearing in 2 weeks. So, and again, we can take some more time there. And the other consideration is we may get it designed. If we're still in such a crazy construction market, it may be something we need to put off for a few months anyway to try and, let prices stabilize if they will. So again, not in a, if you want to take some time, that's totally fine. But, Chief Hannick and his crew has been talking to the neighbors in the area. He's reached many of them. There's some he still hasn't reached. I'm talking to some actually tonight after the meeting, talking to the Downtown Alliance group tomorrow morning. So we're continuing to talk to people, and we really can take some additional time. But Assistant Chief Humphreys is going to show the renderings, show the parking plan, and someone said, well, why have you gotten this far without talking to us? And it's like, well, it's hard to have people understand what you're doing until you at least have a rough site plan and this is what it would look like, so this is what we would be basing rough cost estimates on, and that will, again, come as we refine the plans. But it came about because Chief found a fire station in Idaho Falls that he really liked, that it functioned really well. He knew it worked, and so he has been talking to those architects just to give him, and they've done it pro bono so far, and it's like, they're obviously not going to do any more until we have some funds appropriated, but they've done the rendering pro bono to give us an idea that, again, they've taken an existing floor plan that they know that works, made a few modifications to fit it on this site. It does work really well on this site. And then, again, they've done kind of a parking plan on how many places would be there once the old fire station would come down. So that with that introduction, sorry, I didn't steal the thunder, but I was trying to give the background of why we're
do
doing
that though, so then for our next meeting, Resolution 21-25 will not have the fire station as part of it. It'll just have those other elements, and this will be a separate resolution. Okay, thanks.
So, this one. So just briefly, this would be the, as what we're proposing right now, this would be First East along the bottom of the photograph and Federal Avenue. It would fit on that corner. So this would be the east view and the south view, with this being the west and the north. And the parking, we've tried very hard to make rearrangements and things to keep a fair parking for the public parking that exists there now, just with a different configuration. As it sits right now, in the middle of the block, there's 9 parking stalls less. However, we gain one for the Bear River Mental Health Building. We gain 5 stalls along Church Street and 3 parking stalls along 200 North, where the current apron to the current fire station will be, which brings it to 150 total spaces now available to the public. That excludes the ones in the chain link area for the fire station. And the proposal is 150 parking stalls, the same.
That'd be something nicer than chain link.
Yeah.
I thought we increased the number of public spaces.
160.
It's the same.
So Craig, are there going to be any, does this plan include any alterations to the street, Church Street?
No.
2 or 3.
I don't believe so. It adds more stalls on the 45-degree angle because there's a driveway and a couple things along there, and that will go away. So now you'll have that 45-degree parking from Federal all the way up to Second North.
Okay, but there won't be any alterations in terms of the width
Not
of
in the
that
width of
street?
the road.
Actually, I think we have discussed making Church Street slightly narrower. It's one way, and we do, as I understand it, have the room to do that, because if we upgrade the parking lot, we are required to put in some green space to buffer that. You can see the little green line along Church Street. So I think that's a 3-foot wide landscaping strip. Again, this is a conceptual plan. We haven't, gone to the details to refine everything, but that's a slow one-way street, and I think we could, my understanding is we could get a few more feet there, so that parking will remain the same. We can still have the landscaping strip and not impact the number of stalls on the interior lot.
One other point is the biking in this corner stays.
Right.
It's just not shown on this conceptual plan. We're not taking that out, moving it.
Can you do, your apparatus, can it pull through from the west to the east? It looks really tight.
No, more than likely they'll back in. Pull-through stations is something that throughout my career we've always talked about, but more likely than not, we have different types of apparatus that are parked back to back in the station anyway.
Okay.
And very seldom do you have both of them out at the same time.
Yeah.
So the frontline apparatus that go out the front doors, we always back them
Okay.
anyway.
Yeah, I was a little worried it looked tight back.
Yeah, there's not enough room in there, but it fit within the lot that we have.
But as Chief explained to me, there's enough room on the apron along 100 East that the vehicles can kind of get out of the traffic to maneuver and kind of, back into their appropriate position.
Thank you. It'll be closer to my house.
Mine too.
Okay, any other questions for Chief Humphreys?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mayor Daines, I appreciate, we had conversations with some of us. I appreciate the notification of the neighborhood to make sure people were aware of this, because it's a big change, and I think.
Well, it's not, is it a big change? It is a change, I agree, and change can be hard. Again, a slightly different site, but very close. And as I think all of the council members know, and I guess I'll say this for the listening audience, we have been working behind the scenes over the last year since that earthquake hit, when we got really concerned about the seismic stability of the station. Where do we put it? And we looked at trying to, knock it down in phases, build in phases. That just did not work to get the product we wanted. We looked at some other properties, some that the city owned, some to buy, which again increases the cost, and we just couldn't come up with a better location that was within, the distance they need to be for response time. So again, we did the best we could. We'll talk to people, continue talking. If you have a specific suggestion that we haven't looked at, we'd be happy to take a look as well. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mayor. All right. Under other considerations, we do have a letter that we received last week from Hope Summers, and I will just paraphrase her letter quickly. And she was very concerned about our housing market and homelessness as well too. I don't know if all of you got a chance to read that. Amy, you're on the Homeless
Yeah,
Council.
so actually I wanted to bring up a point from
please.
our meeting today,
Please go
which
ahead.
is kind of interesting. One of the statistics that was shared, and I'll send the survey that was just done on homelessness and affordable housing out to all of you. Last month, Brad reported that 33 new families applied for rapid rehousing. And of those, 27 of those families had already been approved for support, but there's no housing available for them to convert that support into actual housing. So I think it's one thing to think, we don't have a homeless problem, but when you start to hear stories about that these are families that now are eligible for funds, have been accepted into plans, but there's nowhere for those to use those dollars, and they're losing their housing. So there's going to be 33 new homeless families in our community in a short period of time.
Is that just Logan or all the whole county?
I don't know where those 33 families were located, if it was just Logan or if it was the entire county. But, because Bragg does serve, obviously, the entire county.
Okay.
And I think it may be a federal law and not a state law, but there are people who move into affordable housing, they qualify at the time, but there's a provision that once they're there, they can stay there, even if their income exceeds, the levels. And I personally just think that's wrong. I mean, I think they should be given, some adequate time to find additional housing, but it's a great stepping stone to help them stabilize, but then they should move on once their income. And I certainly know of individuals that are in some of our affordable housing developments that are there long after they should be there.
Should be available to someone else to use.
So that might be, again, if it's federal, there's just, you're not going to be able to change it. If it happened to be a state law, maybe it's something the coalition could have conversations about. But again, when you hear stories like that, it makes you frustrated.
Yeah, very frustrated. So that was one of my other considerations.
Very good.
May
So we've got two.
May I go on?
I was going to quickly thank Hope for bringing that to our attention, and whatever we can do as a council to try and alleviate the situation is difficult. I don't think there's any quick and easy answers for anyone. So something for us to consider. And I appreciate her bringing that to our attention. So yes, go ahead, Amy.
So also, I'm not sure everyone is aware, but Ville 364 is the conversion of the hotel on Main Street, and they are actually already almost full, even though they just basically opened. So I think that kind of points to the fact that we do have a bit of a housing crisis here. We also, I know I got an email, and I meant to bring this up at the last meeting, I don't know if the rest of you did, from Paul Rogers, again raising a question about plastic bag ordinance. And my understanding is, I think we put that off until either July 1st, which is quickly coming. So just a little heads up on that.
We need to get that on a future agenda.
Yeah, and I don't know who of our council members is on solid waste. I know that there was much energy and effort placed on other issues with solid waste recently, but I don't know where that education and plastic management plan lies with SWAB. So whoever, if we could get an update on that at our next meeting, I think that would be helpful for us.
Can you check into that, Teresa, and see what our dates are and remind me to get that on the agenda, please? Thank you.
Just for those watching, there's just a reminder, I know there was a Woodruff neighborhood meeting last week. What was it, 20th or 29th? There is one for Hillcrest this Thursday, so if people live in that community and would like to have input into the plans for the new park and working with pulling together leadership for the neighborhood council up there, that would be great.
And there will be one for Bridger next Monday.
Great. Yeah, and Hillcrest is at Hillcrest Elementary. It's also available by Zoom. Where's Bridger's?
And Bridger's is at Bridger Elementary.
So you said.
What time is that?
This
People
Thursday
might
in
be
2 days.
listening to Bridger. The Hillcrest is at 5:30 p.m. The Bridger, was that 7?
Yeah, I think it's 7. 7.
Thank you. You're the Bridger representative,
Yep.
right? Perfect.
And I just learned that there is one for Wilson, right?
It's just the neighborhood steering committee tomorrow
Tomorrow at noon.
at noon at Gibbons Park.
So thanks to all of our citizens who have been getting involved with that.
What are the dates of those other two, Bridgerland and Hillcrest?
Hillcrest is this Thursday, so that's what, the 6th at 5:30.
Yeah.
And Bridger is next Monday, which is the 10th.
At the school.
10th.
Okay,
Yes.
at Bridger School.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they're in person, but there also is a Zoom link available for those people that
Great.
email me and I can send it on to them. I did have a question about notification with Planning Commission, and I know other communities put up signs that are a little bit more visible for projects that are being looked at for rezones. And I don't know what our process would be. I know we meet current state guidelines for those things, but, you
I
know,
thought we did those.
Currently, your signage has to be you need to either give yourself a variance to the sign ordinance,
yeah.
or,
But anyway, I mean.
Those campaign
I just
signs are
know
very visible though,
that-
so.
But it's the size of a campaign sign and it's got information, so it's not like when you're driving, you can really see it. So anyway, because we have had individuals express that 300 feet isn't far enough for notification, traffic issues, et cetera, I just don't know if there's other ways we can ensure, because I know before I was on council, I wasn't looking at the planning commission agenda to see if stuff was coming up. It just feels like we could be better at communicating with our citizens.
Holly, we do have temporary sign ordinances that allow for larger signs, because people can put them on the side of their buildings and things like that,
that's, I
so.
think, under the banner ordinance. Again, occasionally, I do give a variance to allow a sign, like in a park strip. So there may very well be some areas and, some ways that we could work on that.
Because for a while, we were doing a relatively large sign at every location. Now, this was back when I was on planning commission, because we had the same issue. People just didn't know, and 300 feet is way too small, in my opinion. Because that 150 feet of it can be taken up by a road.
Well, can we change that to 600 or 900 or something?
Well, that's what I'm saying, I think it's worth a conversation, because I
More letters.
I've had, when.
noticing for planning.
Because in my former neighborhood, I can say that now, I got a notification about a potential, someone wanted a conditional use for a daycare. The house one further didn't get it because they were not 300 feet. And I was saying, wow, we could have more traffic on their street. And they were like, what are you talking about? I didn't get a letter. So sometimes you get that because people then think, I didn't get notified because.
No, it should be broader.
So anyway, I don't know what the process would be for us to discuss that and advance it a little bit further.
How about a mobile digital billboard?
All those little trailers that we have.
Are you thinking of adding an extra business to Anderson
No,
City?
not at all, not at all, not at all. I was just thinking about our conversation a couple months ago about all the billboards, and it's like.
Sewage plant coming here.
But I've been thinking about this more just because of our conversation about districts. And I think so much of that is people feel like they don't know what's going on. So it may not be the person in the seat, but it's like, I don't know what's going on in my neighborhood. And those to me seem like relatively low cost, but important ways to make sure people feel like they know what's going on around them.
I will have a discussion with staff on that and report back to you.
Thanks.
That sounds great.
And that's all of my notes.
That's all.
Your wish list.
But I do have one more about the new bike law that lets people roll through stop signs. Do we have to change an ordinance for that? Do we have to change our stuff, the new state law?
We need to look closely at our ordinance. I think yes, I think we probably do, but we'll take a look.
Okay.
Whose idea was that?
Are we trying to
It's like
encourage
the
that?
fifth time it was passed. The state passed it. So you don't have to, you can basically do a rolling stop. And if you're at a traffic light and it hasn't changed for 90 seconds, you can run the red light on a bike.
That disturbs me, but.
Well, it's new state law, so. How do the police feel about that?
Cars are doing it all the time.
You're a little more protected in your car though.
Well, the theory is that we're now the 10th state to add this law, and it actually, in theory, is safer for cyclists if they don't have to wait at the stop sign, if they can just keep moving versus stop, and anyway. And the
Because they
same
don't,
with traffic lights.
yeah, because they can keep the momentum going.
Yeah, and they're going through the intersection at a greater speed.
But I'll tell you what, we've got a lot of rolling right turns going on in this town.
That just scares me with like all the headphones that are going on and the distractions and you can't hear and see and.
The rolling right turns don't bother me as much as it's turning yellow, let's speed up and go through it as it's turning red.
That's Second North and Main Street, all the time.
Okay, all right. Anyone else with some other considerations?
Just a reminder of the Cinco de Mayo event tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yes. There's chips and salsa dancing at Anderson's and Bluebird tomorrow.
11 till
so.
7. There's gonna be live bands, food, and
Where is it?
it's at Willow Park.
Thank you.
Starts at 1 o'clock, right?
I think it starts at 11. I think it'll be interesting to see what the attendance will be, but they have a lot of faith to,
The weather's gonna be good.
yeah.
And
So
it
that'll
should be awesome. That's
So
great.
who's organizing it, Ernesto?
The radio station, somebody at the radio station.
Cache Valley Media is doing it.
So
So,
Willow Park, okay.
yeah, that's a great idea.
So
That's when it's on the 5th.
if you want to not have to stand in line, you go at 11, right?
It will be interesting.
I've got that on my thing right here. Yes, I've got that on here. So one other thing, we do have former Senator, State Senator Lyle Hilliard scheduled to come visit with us next week. So he's going to talk about the redistricting
Next
process.
week or
Not
next
next week,
meeting?
sorry. Not next week, next meeting.
Thank you.
Yes, I do
We're
speak
gonna-
out of turn from time to time.
We're gonna
so-
mix him up with budget.
Yes, so on the 18th, he is planning on coming to visit with us about the state redistricting. So that should be more interesting for us. Okay?
I may have more information as well.
Oh, from Ogden? You were able to get a hold of them?
Hopefully today.
Excellent. That's great. Thank you for doing that, Ernesto. All right, anything else? All right, as Amy has suggested, may the 4th be with you. Thanks for being here.
A lot of police issues at your college.
That's my oldest daughter, 8 14.
So, and I was a
Yes, there should be sometime this